he's back there. He's got the coffee cup, black shirt. He's going to be one of the other ones, and hopefully you met Chris, who's coming in for. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Awesome. Well, it should be decent. Juicy. So, all right, everyone. Online, if you can make your way back, and in the room, if you can come find your seat again, and we're going to get started. You're going to talk into this thing. Yes, Paul, you are. Yes, you are. All right, if everyone, I know it's tough to wrap up conversations and I didn't give you very much time, but I promise we'll have more time at lunch. But if you guys can come in, take your seat, we're going to get started again. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Paul Cole to talk about the STP program.
All right, good morning. We're still morning. Again, I'm Paul Cole. I'm the manager for the Navy STP program. So I work for Bob. Bob's my big boss. That's the first person I support. I support Jason and Christy in the back. Our team does. My customer is the small business. I'm one of those Navy support programs Bob had in that slide. I have two other names up there. So when you get this presentation from either Bob from Venmo or you take the survey, Eric Patton, he's my lead business consultant, smart guy. He helps our business consultant team and works with our syscoms to make sure we have the right information going to the right place to help our small business. Don Williamson is our prime liaison. So we are now working directly with primes that have, a need for these innovative technologies to get those that have an SBIR technology to that prime, and they see what they're doing. Next slide. So we've been around 23 years. Come June, will be start our 24th year. I've been with the program for the last 7 years and as the PM for the last 4. To be a part of the program, you have to be an active Navy SBIR Phase 2. And I'll repeat that again because I get it asked, how can I participate? It's an active Navy Phase 2. Right now, there's about 400, well, there is 428 because we just put out our invitation for kickoff. There was 428 eligible technologies to participate in the program this coming cycle. What do? I call it the 6 action verbs. We collaborate, we educate, we research, we mentor, we connect, and we promote. Those are the 6 things that we do, actively do, for the small business. Okay, we are focused solely on the small business, and that is my customer. Where do we want to help you to transition to? Top one is the Navy. Next one's the Marine Corps. And you can see there, after that, I'll take you to any government agency, any DoD agency, any industry prime, or out in the commercial market. My goal, our team's goal, is to help you find that transition. Okay, not just one. Okay, you're great, go to the Navy, but if you sell it to the Air Force and the Army, the Navy's price goes down, you get more money, and that's the whole goal of the SBIRs. So again, our goal, successful transition. Next slide, please. I like to let everybody look at that slide for a minute. If you've been in Navy SBIR, STTR transition program, you have a 63% higher chance of getting a DoD transition. 69% higher for a phase 3, just for the Navy. Phase 3 tech developments, that's getting that additional money, getting more money to flush out your program, do a demonstration, whatever it might be. Even higher numbers. Look at that. So small businesses that have an active Navy Phase 2 contract that don't participate in our program, I always wonder why. Why don't you participate in the program? Now I'm going to tell you the kicker. It's free. Navy's paid for it. It's free. Why aren't you taking advantage of it? Great program the Navy provides. Next program, please. First slide. What do? I talked about those 6. I'll go through them real quickly. We collaborate. Small businesses are great at developing their technology. Great at it. They are not businessmen. Bob's example of, hey, he had a great technology, got it there, and then who was going to do it? His mom had to sew it. Well, when you get in our program, the first thing we're going to ask you is, what's your plan? Somebody's going to walk up to you and say, I want your technology. How are you going to get it to me? We're going to start talking to you about that on day one, because you do not want to have that meeting. The guy says, hey, I like your technology. I need 50 of them tomorrow. And you have to go back to the office and say, what do we do? We're going to help you do that. Educate. So we have a series of webinars that we're going to help you with things like CMMC, mentor protege, IP data rights. We have a panel where we bring in small businesses that have been successful in the SBIR program. They're going to tell you what you need to do. They're going to give you the firsthand knowledge of how they were successful. We'll bring in primes. They'll talk about how do you connect with a prime. There's a lot you have to go through. You can have the greatest technology, but if you're not on their vendor list, or you're not, you don't have certain qualifications, they can't hire you yet. So we're going to start helping you find out what those are. So when your technology is ready to go, you've met all those other requirements. Research. If nothing else, for STP, we provide a market research analysis report. So that's going to provide you who wants your technology. And we'll look at those 6 or 7 that we have up there, Navy, other DoD, other government agencies. And we're going to provide you why do they want it. Then we're going to provide you a POC. Who do you want to go talk to? And then we're going to help you with that message. That's laying out your capture and call plan for you right there. Mentoring and coaching. Just talked about the call plan and capture plan. So we gave you the information. Now you're going to talk to your business consultant, and he's going to then take that MAR and work with you and say, okay, what is your capture plan? What is your call plan? Who are you going to go talk to? Who's first, who's second, who's third? Last thing, we're going to connect. We just finished 3 events. We have a showcase out at West, out in San Diego. We had a Syscom showcase where we brought NavC and NavAir folks together. And we just finished Sear in Space. And currently, I'm going to talk about what we're doing currently, which is the Navy STP Connect. It's a virtual platform. And I got a slide specifically on that, because that's a great opportunity for you to talk to primes and government. And it's free, it's provided as long as you participate in the program. And the last, promote. Bob talked about the $1.1 billion. Well, in May, we'll put out our SBIR transition newsletter, and who won those 1.5 or $1.1 billion, what companies, how much did they get, where did it go, is listed in that transition newsletter. There also, we provide success stories and spotlights. We actually go out and write stories on successful small businesses that have transitioned their technology. So you can see, hey, how did he do it? How did she do it? Spotlight's the same. More focused on exactly what did that small business do to get that transition? What did they have to go through? And the last thing, I'm going to put a plug in for our transition newsletter again. A great article in this coming one that will be out the 1st of May. It's called Build, Test, Build. If you listen to Bob speak before, he talks about that. Really great article on what it is, how small businesses that have an SBIR technology have implemented that. So I really think we do a great job of promoting what SBIRs are doing and what transitions are happening, because that's what you need. You need to see that others have been successful at this, and how were they successful. Next slide, please. Really quickly, I think we talked about the 6 objectives, but we are a year-long program. We just started our kickoff process to get our next cohort started in June. Like I said, we put out 428 invites. Hopefully, we usually get about 200 that actually join our kickoff meeting. and we get anywhere between 130 and 160 technologies that actually take us up on our offer to participate in Navy STP. Why that number is not higher, I don't know. But again, it's a Navy funded program, so it costs you, the small business, nothing. Next slide. I kind of talked about our events already, West, the Syscom, and Sierra and Space. But I just like to put it out there. You know, we did 27 businesses, 600 views of their on-demand tech talk. We record them, we put them up on YouTube, we promote them. 600 times before they went to that event, their tech talk was viewed. So somebody walked into that conference already ready to go to talk to them. They knew what their technology was about and were ready to go. Small business was as well. Next slide, please. This is what I wanted to talk about. Navy STP Connect. This is ongoing right now. Right now, the 138 technologies that are currently in our program are up on our Navy STP Connect. It's a virtual platform. What you have to do, go to that link. If you're a prime or a government folk, you can sign up. The small businesses are on the other end. And it's matchmaking. SBIR, STTR matchmaking. Pull them together, making that connection. Real simple. And again, open to everybody that participates in the program. And it costs you nothing. Next slide. I talk really quick, but I'd like you to know there's a couple other things that are really important, and that is the virtual transition marketplace, and I'm trying to point to it. Which one is it? There we go. Thank you. VTM. Virtual Transition Marketplace takes all those materials that you developed during our program, quad chart, your presentation, company capability brochure, thumbnail and abstract, and puts it in one place in the Virtual Transition Marketplace. It's a search engine. You can go in there and you can sort by company, you can sort by technology categories, you can sort by Syscom, whole host of things. We're getting ready to make it even better. This is version 1.0. We're in the works for version 2.0. Great search tool. It has over 1,000 technologies that have been in the program since 2015. It has their points of contact. You can call them if you're interested. It's a great tool for government. It's a great tool for primes. It's a great tool for small businesses because you can find others that are in here that are doing something similar that maybe you want to partner with. You're looking for that partner. So I need somebody that does this. I do A, and I need someone that does B. Who does B? Great place to find who does B. And these are successful companies that know how to do SBIR. And with that, I'm really quick because I'm a Marine. I will tell you this. This is the second best job I've ever had. My first was being an infantry battalion commo, so you can't beat that. By far, this job is the best because we provide value. Bob talked about the Navy helps the small businesses with their transition. This is the true program that does it. You want to get a transition? Join this program. I can't guarantee it, but I can tell you we're going to give you all the skills that you need to do it. Thank you.
So we'll hold questions till after Chris does his presentation here on the experimentation cell. Chris, do you want to do your own slides or you want me to? Okay, well then I'm going to hand you the mic. So there you go.
All right, so I'm going to twist things up a little bit. We've talked about the SBIR programs, STTR programs, contracts, all that great stuff, and these awesome programs. I'm going to twist away from the slides here, which if you do the survey, you get. But you also can go to our website, which is in the slides here. But there's also, this is a program for SBIR phase 1, 2, or 3. So if you're not one of those, why should you listen to me today? I'm going to talk about something that's free for you too. You can go to our website, Distro A, and you can learn about naval experimentation. I'm not a SBIR expert. I'm not an acquisition expert. Our team is experimentation, naval, Marine and Navy experimentation experts. That's what we do. So next slide. So we're the babies of the group. We're the new program. You know, COVID, great time to start up a new program. So, and we started out in 2020, and our mission is to support the SBIR community. What do I mean by that? Anyone who has a performer who is actively in a phase 1, 2, or 3. We really like the phase 2s and up, but we will talk to phase 1s. But we also talk to those technical point of contacts, TPOCs. I keep mentioning that acronym. If you don't know, the person who's the smart people and really guides these initiatives through. And then the program managers, which Christy and Jason are part of. There's 7 of them, by the way. But there's also, I have sub-program managers underneath them that run things. So we are here to serve that community. We're paid for, free service by Bob Smith, great guy, 2 free programs he's mentioned so far. But we are experts in experimentation. If you've been listening to the news, whether you're, flying rockets up and blowing them up, or if you're trying to do Tesla cars or batteries, experimentation is the methodology on which you develop and get your product out there. That's Chris's opinion, but backed up by a lot. So again, we highlight the benefits of using experimentation and explore the capability for emerging SBIR technology. If you're a small business and you want to learn about experimentation, our website has 4 guidebooks on it that are free for you to use, and I'll talk about those in a second. So our program goals, I always got to have some goals. We want to empower the SBIR community, which is those 3 agencies I talked about, the community, to be a better transitioning agent through experimentation. What do I mean? You're innovative. You're great. You've got a great product. Why? Show me. So you're going to demo this thing. Great. Everyone gets excited. They go back. Nobody buys your product. If you can provide objective quality evidence through an experimentation venue that says you're great, and this is why you're great. And by the way, maybe someone else, these innovators, could use you for other things. That's the data. The result of an experiment is providing that data. So enhance, how do we enhance it? Again, it's all about the data. If you could say to your head falls off, you can market your thing, but if you can have an opportunity to give strong data on why you're better, why I meet your needs and your warfighting gap, that's more powerful. That gives people, the ability to make decisions. Increase awareness. Naval experimentation has hundreds of events, huge events. Rim of the Pacific events with hundreds of nations, small events in labs. I think Christy, NavAir has over 400 labs at Pax River. There's all sorts of people doing experimentation every day, and there's lots of programs. And guess what? Some of them will pay you to come. Most of them won't, but some of them will. I'll talk about the costs in a little bit. And then our last, simplify experimentation process. So we tried taking this incredible thing called naval experimentation and kind of putting it down into layman's terms where you can understand. A person in Utah building a widget could understand this, and we produced and published 4 guidebooks. I'll talk about those in just a sec, but they're free for you to download and use. They're all distro A. Again, experimentation to provide objective quality evidence to support an acquisition decision. That's always the goal for experimentation. Next slide. Interesting, I've had more, we switched this up a little bit on me, so it's a newer brief, my fault. All right, so end-to-end support. So when you want to go into an experiment, what type of event do you need to be in? If you have a sensor, and it's an airborne sensor, do you want to be in a sub underwater? If you're doing marketing or an AI app, what's the best place for you to be in? So the right event at the right maturity. Does anybody know what TRLs are? Transition readiness levels? You know how you get from one to the other? Experimentation. But there's also something called the experimentation maturity. You could be at a TRL that's higher, but you're not ready to put it in because you haven't integrated. or the people running the experiment can't afford to put you in their aircraft and planes and stuff like that. So what is the best maturity option for that event? What are the requirements? What do you need to test what you want to test? What do you need to collect that data? And then again, each event has its own entrance criteria. Some fleet battle experiments, fleet experimentation program. It's on secret. There's all sorts of things you need to do. And it's very high overhead. Other things like, ANTEXs, which are advanced naval technology exercises, are a little bit more free-forming, and they have announcements you can participate in, things like that. There's a whole myriad of these, and we're here to help with that kind of discussion. And again, resources. Who's going to pay? Let's say you're a phase 2 SBIR. And you have already done your demonstration. Who's going to pay for you to go to this event? Working with NavAir and Christy and them, they're actually putting that funding in, like she said. They're putting funding towards not just doing a demo and saying, hey, we're going into these experimentation events. So all of these things here, we are mentor, train, and facilitate for once you're in the program. Again, we do have a website for everyone else. All right, we have a tailored support technical. So if you come to our team, you're a phase 1, phase 2, not everyone's going to get the full Monty. We're going to take you through the whole experimentation because you may not need that. What if you just want to understand what the warfighting gap for this specific event is going after? What does that mean? What do you need to show to do that? What kind of data? What kind of events? We do those discussions all the time. And it could be a half hour of your time, and it can have tons of benefit. Do those sort of introduction interviews. Engineering, this is where you start getting into the hard stuff. Has anyone here tried putting anything on a ship, aircraft, or submarine? Pretty cheap, huh? So putting something on a network, which you could plug into your home network, and you say it's not that hard, but putting it on a ship is a whole different story. You're talking maybe $1 million and 13 months of time. And everyone wants to get their little niche along the way. So what if you can do the same thing by putting it on a test ship that's not a niche? That's what we can do. We can help guide you through that. We could also, the guidebooks, talk about those processes. What is cyber? What does cyber mean to the DoD? I don't just need Windows. I need this specific kind of Windows. What is, all these scans? What are lithium-ion battery certifications? These are all things that, I see gentleman here nodding his head. He's been through the pain. Our team can help with that. We know the people who do that. We know it's a 25-page process, but you really only need these 15, and here's the POC that you need to go to. And we can help mentor through that process. But again, our tailored support, so not everyone's going to need that. We can't do it for 500 different servers. What we can do is give you what you need. Next slide. All right, our guidebooks. Sorry, I had a luck with it. SBIR 101 is the basics of experimentation. This is based on naval experimentation from 100 years of experience. We're on our 3rd revision because we already put 2 books out and people had changes and questions. What does an objective mean? What is a hypothesis? What is an experiment? What's the difference between test and evaluation in experimentation? What's the difference between a demo and an experiment? And then what are all the pieces and parts you'd have to go to at the highest level? So the second one is a shipwriter's guide. Right now that's for Navy gray hulls. Our revision 2 is going to be out for Maritime Sea Lift Command ships. They asked us to do that. We met with that command and we said, hey, we have a problem here. Small businesses, guy in Utah doesn't know how to even go up a brow. Doesn't know where to shower, where to eat. And it's a simple thing, but very, very difficult if you don't have that naval background. Okay. That one's out there, and these are all distro-aid that are on our website. Then our 2 newest books are the 103, which is installation and engineering processes. Everything from what is risk management framework, what is a ship main process, what is an airworthiness certificate. If you know what these things are, if you've heard these before, you've been in this environment, and they're very difficult processes and they're sub-processes. You can't get one without the other in some cases, and you have to pay for some. Who's gonna pay? You as a company can't, the government has to pay the government. So there's all these processes in here. So we started out this guidebook. 103 was 150 pages and everyone got lost. We drilled it down and we're coming out with engineering process guides for those specific processes. So you don't have to read the engine 103. And if you're not doing this, this, and this, great. But hey, I need to know what this lithium ion battery thing, you go to the engineering process guide. As much as we can put out in distro A, we put out. The last one is 104, experimentation analysis and reporting. The weakness for every single experiment in my 20 years of doing this is the analysis and reporting of your technological goals, your objectives. They may have great warfighting gaps and how well you did, but what do you want to learn? Did you get what you wanted out of it? Did you get the parameters? And you talk about build, test, build. That's where this comes in. If I have analysis on how it works and sailors or Marines telling me how this thing works, I can then develop it better for the next customer. We've proven this. We've done it with 4 or 5 SBIRs right now that are actually in transition. So that guide is basically talking about that. It's our first shot across. And if you have questions on this and you say, nah, this doesn't make sense. In the end, you have the email on here, contact us. We'll research it and put it in our next version. It's a living guide. And again, the quick reference guides, those are now engineering reference guides and operational reference guides. So what is spectrum allocation? If I radiate something, what do I need to do that? Especially in the GPS. That's a tough one. And again, we've talked about facilitation, mentoring, and training throughout. What we mean by that is really where you are and tailored support. If you have a widget, you want to get on a DDG that's coming out here. What are the steps? What's the process? Who are the community members that can help you? And again, we also, in all that process, we are a connector. So for NavalX, Tech Bridges, we talk to all sorts of experimentation venues. Some even in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, all across the country. So call us. We don't know. We're going to find out. I have a research analyst that if you have a question, we can't do that to keep her up at night. I'd love to just get her to sleep so she can run off with that question. Next slide. Some of the effects here, I've talked about this throughout. Really, one of the 2 things I want to do is more receptive TPOCs and event sponsors. Big companies play in these events. Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. They're playing in fleet experimentation events every day. They have staff on staff. Who's your staff? Who's going to help you build that? We're a free team to back you up. So when you go to that event, you say, hey, I'm supported by the SEC. Chances are fleet experimentation knows about us. I came from that environment. MSC knows about us. They know about us. If they don't, they're going to find out if we're your staff to help. TPOCs, usually not their day job. TPOCs are great, but SBIR may not be their day job 100% of the time. So is he going to want to spend 20 hours building that report for you? We can help with that. And he's more apt to use you in the experiment, he or she. Again, last but not least, improve and enhance. Most small businesses, when you first talk experiment devices demo, don't want to fail. They're afraid that if I show a weakness, the government won't buy us up, and it's a valid concern. But most of the organizations who we are talking to and training on experimentation understand that if you fail and you get data, we'll give you a better product. But we will not put you in a position that will do you harm. We're not going to send you down a trail that will do you harm. So if that starts happening, back up. Try to find a different event. We've run into that a couple times. Next slide. Some of the people and communities we support. So there are 7 program managers in the SBIR community. We support all 7. Our 2 most active are NAVC and NavAir. They're the largest performers for SBIR, but we work with all of them. We work with all of the venue owners we can get a hold of. you've heard of a Trident Warrior series, Coastal Trident. We're very active in those. If you have a repair technology, we're dealing with rep techs and some of the pieces there. If we don't know it, we'll get involved with it. So contact us if you have a phase 1, phase 2 SBIRs. And if you just want in the phase 1 phase going to phase 2, if you want advice, hit it up. Next slide. 2 methods of contact. How do we work with all the SBIRs? I only have 10 people on the team. So really, we try getting a top-down approach to our best. If the program managers come to us and say, hey, this is an emerging thing, we want to get an event. However, we do, like this event here, a bottom-up. However, if that happens, when we talk to a performer, we always cycle back to the TPOC and the program manager who owns it. Getting out of line in an experimentation venue with the program management is not a good idea. So we'll always be in lockstep with the 3. This is the Navy SBIR website. If you Google DoNSec, you'll come up with our website, or it's on the left-hand side. All of those guidebooks are on there. There's lots of information on our link, and there's feedback. My contact's up here. Mr. Scott Bartlett is our government program manager. And like I said, Bob Smith's who we work for. Okay.
So the question was, the estimated timeline for the MSc program guide. Do you have that, when that might be released, the first version?
We just got, I would say, to get it through PAO and public affairs, probably 2 months. We're almost done with the first revision.
Any questions for Paul or Chris in the room?
Got all the questions. So when a small business becomes a part of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, are they still engaged in selling their products or services to the general, whoever their target audience originally was, or have they ceased all, operations of doing anything outside of just trying to produce their product for you or for the government?
The answer is you can continue to sell your product however you were selling it before. It does not affect what you were doing.
Any other questions in the room or online? Okay, well, Paul and Chris, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you'll be staying around for lunch, so please find them at lunchtime if you do have any questions. So give us just a couple minutes and we're going to get set up for our small business panel here. And I'm going to ask those small businesses to come up here and we'll get started. Yeah, so Bill, you're in the middle. You're right here. Chris, you're down there. All right, I'm now going to turn the mic over to Dr. Julie Stark to MC our small business panel. So if everyone could take a seat, thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Glad everybody's here. So you guys must be the best speakers because I only put the best speakers right before the food is served. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of the gentlemen to introduce themselves very briefly, what their company is, and then start by telling us if they had an STTR or a SBIR and what phase. And then we'll have a couple of questions and allow some time to chat at the end. So Eric, why don't you start? I'll pass.
All right. It's back. So Eric Adolphi, I'm the CEO and founder of Forward Edge AI. The company is a startup. We launched in 2019. I do have active SBIRs and STTRs. I have 7 active SBIRs and 3 active STTRs, 2 phase 3s, and another phase 3 on the way. Been doing SBIRs for the last all my adult life, 30 plus years. Program's been around for 40 years. So I've been at it for some time. I'm the first African-American SBIR Tibbetts Award winner. So I've been doing this for a little bit.
I'm Bill Newton. I'm with Phineas Cooper, Virginia. Phineas Cooper, Virginia was founded in 2008. So we've been around for a while and started as a very traditional defense contractor. But over the last probably eight or so years, we've been really looking a lot at the SBIR programs. We have a couple of phase 3s, a couple of phase 1, and I think 1 phase 2 that we're working right now. But it's really changed a lot of our outlook on business and what we do with the defense contracting. And our business, if you ever look at our website, good luck figuring out what we do because it's we solve problems, right? So we have all these different problems that people have come to us with, and we have people try to throw their best ability to go and help solve those problems for the customers. And so our website kind of shows that diversity and the who came to us with a question or a problem. And we see the SBIR and the STTR programs as great assets to be able to get those solutions to the customer much faster and help them be more effective.
Awesome. And I'm Chris Just. I'm the owner of ETC International. We started off as a training services company. In 2019, we kind of got wind of what AppWorks was doing with the open topic SBIRs, and we opened up a technology line. And we've had 2 phase 1s, 2 phase 2, 3 phase 2s, phase 3 so far, and hopefully a bunch more phase 3s coming.
Can you hear me? Okay. So since it sounds like you've had the most experience both with SBIRs and STTRs in different phases, so how about you talk to the group about the biggest challenges you've had and how you overcame those with the different types of funding you have received?
So I've had SBIRs for 30 plus years, right? So I've had SBIRs in just about every federal agency, right? So it tells you I'm old, right? And so the challenges, they're different based on the agency, right? And I find, so there are phase 1 challenges, 2 challenges, and 3 challenges. Phase 3 challenges are essentially a lot of contracting officers, maybe it's exception, don't really understand the program, right? So transitioning to phase 3 is problematic, particularly today when most of DoD is in sort of like a war footing to come up to a contracting officer who's not familiar with the program is a challenge. And then for me, as you can kind of see, I'm kind of a unicorn, right? So when you're African-American and you're in this space, which is deep tech, there's always sort of this doubt that you're actually doing this, right? So I deal with this constantly. They're always looking for the guy behind me who's actually doing the work when it's really me, right? So that's the phase 3 thing. Phase 1 and phase 2, and quite frankly, it's a kind of the same theme. During the COVID, I think it was the NIH, NASA, National Science Foundation, did a study, and it was very, very interesting. So what they did is they took 10, SBIR proposals, and this is on YouTube, by the way. They took 10 SBIR proposals and provided it to the evaluators and said, how many of these would you fund? And it was something like 9 out of 10, which was really good. And then what they did is they changed the name of the principal investigator to someone who sounded African American. The win rate dropped from 9 out of 10 to 2 out of 10. And then they changed, and they didn't change anything else. And then they changed the name of the principal investigator to someone who sounded African American female, like a Shaquanda Johnson. The award went from 9 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 to 0 out of 10. So this is a fact, right? So there's bias in these programs. So when we look at the numbers, if you look at the SBA, NIH just published some data last week. 44,000 SBIR awards were made over the 40 years, and I'm not going to take much more time. 44,000 awards were made, 0.6% was African Americans, 0.6. If you look at the venture capital community, it's 1%. So 1% venture capital community, 0.6% in the SBIR community. So there's a problem, right? That needs to be addressed. So there's challenges.
Well, that's a little disturbing. Let's hope we're getting better at that, but yeah. Gentlemen, do you have any specific challenges? And remember from what the little polls we did in the room earlier, it seems as though we've got a lot of people that, thank you, Joe. Thank you. Most of the people here that are here to learn about SBIRs and STTRs seem to be more in the phase 1 and 2. So since you guys have recently had phase 1 and 2, can you maybe each give one example of a challenge and how you overcame it? And if you have one specific with a Navy funding source, that's probably most relevant since those are the folks we have here.
Sure. So a couple of challenges from the traditional defense contractor is that the contracting officers really don't get it. In a lot of cases, when we go with the SBIR programs, they immediately want justification for why you're going sole source. Why are you going to an agency outside of maybe the Navy if you're using a different program? And so the contracting officers are trying to keep it all in-house and really making it harder for our technical points of contact because they're like, hey, I got the solution. You're going to do it for me. We worked on the statement of work. This is exactly what I want. And then we go to try to get it under contract, and the contracting officer says, "Wait a minute, I don't understand this," or "I'm going to need this justification submitted and send it off to their chain of command for review," and those types of things. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. The other one is for folks to know that it's okay to use SBIR. When you looked at the graphs up there, you saw PO carriers was probably one of the smallest ones, and they're my biggest customer. And in their office, a lot of their folks look at the SBIRs as that's the futuristic Star Wars type of technology. And if it's not that type of thing, that's not what the SBIR program is for. And that's absolutely not the case. That, you know, so we have some selling to do on our part on the salesmanship, just on the program, and that this is allowable, this is okay, this is what it's about. And this is exactly why they have the program in here, so we can bring our solutions to the table and help you to solve your problem. So.
Awesome. Agree with all of those. I'll take it from the angle of maybe you're coming into your first award. You've gone after a phase 1 or a directive phase 2 or something. I'd say get to know your TPOC extraordinarily well, and also don't make a TPOC be the only contact you have at that customer or organization. Make sure that you are building champions and supporters around that TPOC so that you don't have a single point of failure. We've had an enormously positive experience with the program, with the exception of a single award, and that's exactly what it was. We got isolated with a TPOC that didn't understand what the program was about. Bad on us. We should have had some buffer around that. So there's my sort of tactical first award tip.
On that particular topic, ask for help because, you know, I've had a number of cases where our technical point of contact is gung-ho, can't wait. And then when it gets to their boss is like, what are you talking about? You know, or it gets to the budget finance people, the BFMs, and it's like, I have to move what, when? So that team thing is really good. And also asking for help because you heard a lot of resources today. And a lot of times people are just either afraid or unwilling to go reach out. And there are tons of people that want to help us to win those contracts and get that assistance out there. So just reach out now.
So I'm going to help with a little bit of that jargon because I know we have some new people here. The ORDA is Tech Transition Office, has slightly different acronyms, of course, but it's whatever office within that government agency is tech transition. So you have a person that has to sign off on that. The BFM is one of the 15 different ways we call finance people. They're very important money pushers. So you have the program officers like Bob Smith and many of my Navy colleagues that are here that control pots of money. Really important person is often the person that controls the finances and actually can get things moving along. And that type of information, you can ask the technical person who that is. And sometimes they'll share it. Some agencies are better at sharing it than others, but it's not that hard to figure out either because they're on email strings. So, it's perfectly fine for you to, in an appropriate professional way, reach out and ask questions about that sort of thing. And if it's at a certain phase in the SBIR or STTR, understand that your question might not get answered directly back to you because I have to keep everything fair in terms of information sharing. So very often there's a website or something where that question will get posted and then multiple people may answer. So be careful when you ask a question not to give up any proprietary information. And they screen for that. But, so those were really great comments. I wanted to also ask, we talked about challenges. I'd also like to hear, and you commented a little bit on it, Chris, but how about we start again with Eric? You're the closest, so I'm going to start with you. Eric, how about talk about, and again, if you could kind of focus it maybe on the Navy experiences that people can learn from, if there are any, I hope, positive experiences, and like maybe the road you took to get to that positive outcome to help our fellow small business folks here.
So again, been doing this for a while. I don't currently have Navy's SBIRs. I have National Science Foundation and Air Force, right?
Okay.
But I did.
So maybe Air Force then, because the NSF process is quite a bit different. I mean, I'm sure there's positive things there, but the Air Force process is quite similar to the Navy process. So maybe we can learn something from your experience there.
Right. So I actually have a very interesting perspective because I had Navy SBIRs in the past, years ago, right? So I can now see the progression, right? So I picked up some things today that was very interesting. So I'm doing direct comparisons between the Navy, Air Force, and the other programs. So I have a lot I can share. But from my perspective, the Navy, I hope you guys don't take this the wrong way. The Navy does it really well. And when John Williams ran the program here at the Navy, he's now at the SBA, there were some innovative things that they set up, which was back then they would do the IDIQs and allow you to sell your products with IDIQs if you had a successful SBIR. It was like immediate, right? Back then. So some of the things that are very, innovative here today is the dedicated contracting staff that's doing phase 3 awards. You have no idea what it's like with these other agencies, and we're trying to get phase 3s, and we are having to educate the contracts staff about the program, and everybody thinks I'm up to something. Literally, and I'm actually, this is why I do this, because I enjoy getting the word out. So I've been, the SBA, Department of Commerce, Department of Transportation. I've been doing training for contracting officers. I'm doing their job, try to help, help for everybody, right? But I think, what the Navy is doing very well, as far as like my journey is concerned, I'm looking at all of the friction that I'm going through with the other programs. And by the way, if you have a National Science Foundation SBIR, you can get a Navy phase 3. So that's not a problem. But what is interesting is the Navy has this ecosystem that seems to be, more geared towards your success, whereas the others are like, essentially, you win it, then you're on your own, right? And go figure it out. And I think there's some best practices here that I hope will transition. Last point, about 3-4 weeks ago, I had to go before the Defense Innovation Board. And so there was other folks there participating in other SBIR programs. And so we got to provide some feedback, and I heard some feedback from other programs, Army, et cetera. And I really think, I hope nobody from the Air Force is watching. I really think that the Navy does it very well. There's some tweaks on the edge, but I think the Navy is doing a pretty good job.
A couple of success things. We have I'll try to be quick on this, but we had a project we did where we were trying to figure out what parts does a ship need when it's going to be repaired. And there was a theory that ships deliver late because the parts arrive late. So we were trying to forecast what those look like ahead of time. And we're just doing that as part of our routine butts in chairs, providing contracted support to our customer. But that really got into a lot of data analytics, accessing data from multiple sources, proprietary data, how do you get to the system? And that got us into starting some programs where we started pulling in data. And then once we got it, what do we do with it? And that led to another program, other transactional authority project we did, bringing that stuff together. Led to another type of collaboration type of tool, and is transitioning over to SBIR. We did a phase 1 SBIR for that concept for aviation platform, and we're working on a phase 3 with that currently, which we are working through. But what's really cool about it is by going through the SBIR process, we are challenged now to look for more innovation. Where we thought we kind of, we're doing what the customer asked for, we are now out actively looking for partners in academia and in industry to go and bring a better solution to the table than we had before. So when one of the gentlemen talked about, who are you partnering with, one of the very large global consulting companies came to us and said, hey, we know what you're doing for the Navy. Could you use our help? It's like, absolutely. We could love your name because, they're the type of people that, walk in the doors and they automatically get the audience type of thing. So we want to use that type of thing. Had a George Mason University, met with one of their folks up there. They have a ton of people who are in programs that are going to go work for the 3-lettered agencies that need some sort of internship, some sort of partnership, some sort of ability to work with a company so they can get involved, learn the language, maybe get a clearance if it requires a clearance type of thing. But what a great way to partner with the academia and get some of these STTRs going and looking for those places where we can bring solutions to them. So I would tell you that the success here is if you're a small business, you're hungry, you're lean, you're agile, you can move quickly. Okay. SBIR not only stimulates the government agencies, the government customers, but it also, you'll find in your parent organizations, it will stimulate you to start looking to be better and to grow and do better things.
All right, Chris, I'm going to tweak the question a little bit to you, and then it's going to come back this way. So as the newest company here that's gotten this type of funding, I want you to think about the best piece of advice you can give to these small companies about how to work with the government in general, or in particular with the SBIR, STTR process. And you guys are not allowed to repeat the answers. So this gives you a moment to think about what another response is. And that's why I'm going to end with you, Eric. With your 30 years experience, I'm sure you have all kinds of good advice for these small companies. So Chris, what's your one piece of advice?
Well, I'll keep it from a Navy perspective. I don't actively have any Navy SBIR or STTR contracts, but I'm a former Navy guy, and I started over learning about the SBIR program from the Navy. So what I would suggest is just make sure that you get into, there's a lot of guidebooks that you've heard mentioned, you've heard the policy directive mentioned. As you're starting to work with the government, starting to work with the SBIR and STTR program, go learn yourself. And you guys are already here, so you guys are already ahead of the curve. But get into the actual documents themselves. Go back to the source material. So if you see something, see a guidebook, refer back to say, the SBIR STTR policy directive, go read that. Because then you'll know what's actually right. And you can point back to that, because as you've heard a lot of the guests say, you're going to run into the education problem where you have somebody that doesn't know how to spell SBIR. And you can at least know that I'm right. But now you can navigate within the government. You can say, okay, I know somebody over here in the government or the Navy that knows about the SBIR program or STTR program, and I can now connect them to somebody that doesn't. And they can do a government to government education, which sadly, and it's just the environment, government to government is going to be trusted much more than me, a dirty contractor, ever telling government something that they don't know. So, but leverage that. And that's what creating champions around yourself are. You can leverage off their experience.
If I could add just a tad bit, it's a great piece of advice. Make sure you're looking at the specific guidance, because sometimes we like to confuse things, and there's DoD guidance and there's this Navy guidance. If you're applying to a particular office or a particular SBIR program, make sure you're looking at that specific guidance in addition to the higher order guidance. It does matter to the TPOC and to the organization.
All right, my piece of advice is to listen to your customer, and really listen to not just what they're telling you, but what are they really asking for? Because you have a product or a service or a solution for a problem that they have. You know it, you are the expert on that thing. But when they start talking about, hey, I really want this result or this effect, and you know that your product can solve it, you've got to bring the whole solution to the table for them. So if they are never dealt with a contracting officer before, you're gonna have to help them through that. But you have to listen to hear those types of things. If there's areas that they don't know, you're gonna have to figure out and listen to, hey, they have questions about this, or they really don't have their bosses buy in on these things. We need to help them through that. But by actively listening to what they're telling you or what they're asking for you, and learning the process, becoming an expert in the process yourself, you get the solution, but you need the money and you need the contract vehicle to get there. And sometimes you're going to have to help them through those other two pieces.
So, quick show of hands, how many people in the audience actually have an SBIR, phase 1, phase 2, SBIR, STTF? 2, okay. So, my advice is this. So when I did my first, nobody told me it was a thing, right? So I wasn't afraid, so I just did it, right? Big problem that I see a lot of people have is they're afraid to start because they're afraid they might lose, right? Or the application process is too daunting, right? Nobody told me it was a thing. So I just plunged in. I saw a topic with NASA and I won my first one, which was like a lightning strike on an asteroid, right? So just go for it, right? That's my first. My second, read the policy directive. Go to the SBA's website, go get the policy directive and read it. Most people have never even read the policy directive. Get grounded on the policy directive because everything you need to know about the SBIR program is in that policy directive.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. So we have a few minutes left. We wanted to have some time for Q&A and discussion. Tina, are there any questions that have been typed into the chat so far? All right. Anybody in the room have a question? I'm going to bring you the microphone.
So with all of your experience, have you found that perfection or the striving for perfection gets in the way of good enough?
Yes.
So would you recommend that if you are writing towards one of these topics and you get rejected and the feedback is, oh, you were so close. Were you actually that close or were you in reality non-responsive to the solicitation? And how do you tell the difference?
So excellent question. So I tell you have experience with this. Full disclosure. So I actually do peer reviews of SBIRs for National Science Foundation. I've been invited to do for NIH. There are companies that have been rejected 4 times and they won in the 4th submission. You could resubmit. And not only can you resubmit, you could resubmit to another agency, same proposal. And as one of the folks said earlier today, Navy may not have a need for it today, maybe Air Force, or maybe EPA, or Department of Energy, right? So the point is, the thing that kills people, that stops people is lack of ambition. So you get stuck and then you quit, right? That's where ambition comes in, right? So if I lose, I'll ask for a debrief, always ask for a debrief, and then tweak and tweak. It's your passion.
Bob Smith touched on this earlier, but you can't hammer it home enough. I've also been on panels like this where we're reviewing them. I wouldn't believe how often companies submit and don't follow the rules. If it says 10 pages, don't put in 14 pages. It's a very good idea if you to have somebody other than just your technical staff, even if it's a peer, a different company, have somebody else review it and make sure that it makes sense and it's not just I don't know. We've read some where you look at it and thinking, did they look at the rules at all? Sometimes it's very specific. It's specific for a reason. You saw the numbers Bob Smith put up. They're looking at thousands of proposals a year. We're not going to look at, an 80-page proposal. If it says 8 pages, 8 pages, and that's it. If it says don't add additional pictures, don't add additional pictures. So just make sure you're following the rules because, we don't want to have to turn down a proposal because it didn't follow the rules. Terrible as a reviewer to do. And we can give that feedback. And usually it's pretty generic. The rules were not strictly adhered to. We're geeks at our, we can't not look at it. Yeah. And then we hope the company requests feedback because we can't unsolicited give feedback either. But usually if a company thinks they had a good proposal and they didn't get anywhere, they will ask for feedback. And yes, we will tell them you have to follow the rules exactly.
roughly it's about 15% of all SBIRs are thrown out because they're not compliant. 15% is about the
15.
number.
Yeah, I'm
15.
not surprised. Is there another question in the room? I thought I saw a hand up there. Okay. There we go.
Hi, thank you for your time, gentlemen. Would you mind commenting, maybe just for context, on what are some of these technologies that you've had successful transitions on? Thanks.
All right, so for Phoenix Group, our technology really is about process. So we are using various tools. We really look at what our government customers are using. So they're using Microsoft Office products, right? That's what they're using. You'd be surprised at what they do on spreadsheets. And you say, you got $1 billion program on a spreadsheet? Really? And that's true, right? So what we do is we use a lot of those things to try to make it as user-friendly, seamless as possible. So we focus primarily on process and then bringing technologies that are mature into the process to do that. So behind the scenes, we may use, we're using some database tools, SQL and some database type of tools. We're using a lot of the FedRAMP products because the government's already looked at those types of things and trying to bring those to the solution set as well to do that. But it's really about how are we using the data that we have and bringing that to get better decisions.
Yeah, and to that end, and somebody mentioned this earlier too, just because you win one of these awards as a small company doesn't mean you can't have support from a big company. So, and the big companies can use their IRAD money, their internal research dollars, whatever it's called for those bigger companies. Like even if it's an SAIC, a Lockheed Martin, a Boeing, they have pots of money where they want to work with small partners. It might be a little bit more work on your part, but you learn from them. You also might be able to leverage those tools. Might not even cost that much money out of your funding, but you're going to be able to leverage their experience and their tools very often for a small business that hasn't had the money to develop these more advanced tools to do things.
Our experience has been, we started off from we were entirely a training firm, training services. And when we started to get into technology, we just started to say, okay, well, we've got some very, very deep but narrow niche knowledge in some DoD activities. So what we started to do is we started to identify problems that were shared not just by one service, but jointly. And we started to then get after applying IT technology to them. So we've done a mobile app, and then we realized very quickly that higher echelon folks that cared about the data that was coming from down on the ground, never going to log into a mobile app. So they needed a C2 system, a command and control system that takes lots of information from different sources and presents it in a way that that particular stakeholder wanted to see. So we sort of worked our way through problems within an area where we already had knowledge and were able to grow contacts very quickly.
Yeah, so my first product after the Space Shuttle Challenger accident occurred, I was actually watching Star Trek, and it was a battle, and Nurse Chapel came to Kirk and said, and gave him a battle damage assessment with this thing that looked like an iPad. And I said, holy crap, that's it. So I submitted a proposal to a NASA topic to develop a safety system for the space shuttle. And that actually transitioned, and they're using it today for Atlas V rocket launches. It's a safety system. And it was actually the first wireless network. So this is my Al Gore moment. It was the first wireless network in the US. And so that system called EPIC got me into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So I'm in a museum. My second big product is going to freak you out. So I have a technology called NTDS, which is installed in every air traffic control facility in the United States. So either you're going to feel really good about yourself, or you're never going to fly again after you meet me. So it's another safety technology, keeps planes from crashing. So my one trick pony has always been national security and public safety. That's all my products. So today, my current product is a door, is a quantum resistant, cyber resilient encryption device that protects endpoints, right? So Air Force SBIR, so it's CubeSats, phones, IoT, etc. So yeah, it's a low cost, my commercial low cost quantum resistant endpoint protection.
We might have time for one more question, and then Bob, if you want to make any comments, I can pass the mic to you.
Yeah, it's lunchtime. My name is Johnny Lindo. I'm with Control Plus. We're a cybersecurity GovCon startup. This has been very helpful. The rest of my team, they're all military and government guys. I'm the only non-military government guy. Question going back to like the education part of it, because I saw in the beginning there was a slide that said it's partnerships with NPS and other educational institutions. And I was at an ACG 757 event last month talking about DoD and the 757, et cetera, and Congressman Whitman was there. And his focus was like, we gotta compete with China. China's coming for us. But there was no mention of investing in the next generation. It was just, we gotta pour billions of dollars into businesses, which is good because we all want this. But as far as the panelists go and Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge, do you have grant opportunities for nonprofits / schools? Because I also work with a STEAM education nonprofit, so STEM with the A for arts, to talk to the middle school students, talk to the high school students, introduce them to your technologies, your businesses, to say, hey, you can come into this space because you can't compete with China if you're not thinking 20, 30, 40 years ahead. Because we're all here, I mean, we'll be around for 20, 30 years, hopefully, but we need to focus on the next generation. We need to focus on the next generation to show them, especially in underserved communities, we need you in this space, and let's figure out a way to partner up to address that.
I'd like to.
Thank you. Just real quick, gentlemen, so we can try to stay mostly on schedule. So your quick snippet of a response to that comments?
Yeah, if you're in it for the long haul, you've got to look to the next generation. You know, I'm talking with folks today that, you know, the people leaving college, you know, are starting their families or those types of things, you know, early 20s, you know, mid 20s, early 30s, right? And it's been 30 some odd years since I got out of the Navy. So whatever I knew back then is no longer relevant. So we've got to be working for the workforce of the future, the tools that they're using, you know, the assumptions that they make. You know, the kids don't do email, right? My kids don't answer, you know, don't even answer text, right? But we got to figure out how to reach them and get them engaged and get their hearts into what we do. And if we can do that, then we'll be successful for the long run.
I'll take a slightly different tack in terms of going after the next gen problems and the education piece. Look at what the government puts out as their priorities. So you can go to the National Defense Strategy, you can read that. It may be a slightly political document, but that tells you where they want to spend money. And things are broad enough that as you go down into, say, a military branch, they've got typically a matching strategy or a plan that there's usually an unclassified version of it. And you can start to figure out, okay, where are these priorities? Maybe you have maybe a problem that you want to solve already in mind. If you can make that solution align vertically, you can start to find where dollars may flow. And you're going to find probably, I'm guessing, government evaluators that say, okay, that's a priority. We agree. Let's fund that.
So everything we do, we partner with universities and young people, right? So they mentioned STTRs earlier. I've got 2 active. So we have, they're called historically Black colleges, universities, and minority serving institutions. We have them on our team. Every contract we have an HBCU or an MSI on our team. They're doing penetration testing. They're doing cyber forensic analysis, doing artificial intelligence. And in fact, we filed 5 patents. We have our students in all the patents. And we have college students who, one, Lisa Jackson, she from an HBCU, she's graduating, master's degree, got her first patent with us. So we are sharing the patents with our students, and they're actively involved they're part of our team. They're not like separate, they're part of our team. So they're in there and they're doing things they've never done before.
That's great. So, and to wrap up, also wanted to mention, so ONR, every major organization has a STEM budget, science, technology, engineering, math budget. ONR has probably the biggest one, but DARPA, all the agencies have it, and encourage everybody, if you want to be active and to do exactly like we're saying, to get the young people in the next generation prepared to deal with all the threats that we have to deal with from the DoD perspective. They're always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in doing that, both from a company perspective or in your own time, like many of us do, it's great to reach out and do that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the panel. Chris, Bill, and Eric, thank you very much for being here, and hopefully we can continue discussions.
All right, so before I release you for lunch, couple quick things. So we have the opportunity for some of our speakers have graciously agreed to stay after all the presentations to do one-on-one sessions. First one, Eric, who is just up here, is doing a SBIR writing workshop that will start and will be right up here. So you don't have to sign up for that. If you'd like to do that, it's going to start right here at 2:45. So just hang around and you can glean some more of that knowledge from him. There's that one. There are a couple other one-on-one sessions where people had signed up, but they are not here. So if you are interested, there's a slot to talk to Bob Smith. NavC, Jason has graciously agreed to stay. There's a slot there. If you were signed up for NavAir, Christy had to leave for a family emergency. So Joseph from Nag Marine or Justin from Certo Aerospace, just come find me because she talked to me before she left. And then Miss Mercedes Thurston, who we're going to hear from after lunch, she's got a couple slots open. So come see me before you head out to lunch. But I ask everyone to be back in their seats at 12:50. We're going to get started to get through the rest of the program. So thank you guys and enjoy lunch. Test. Ooh, that is loud. If you guys can start making your way back into your seats, that would be great. And to those online, make your way back and we're going to get started here shortly. All right, ladies, you can come on up here, please. All right, as everyone is making their way back in, we're going to go ahead and get started so that we stay on time and can get you out of here on time this afternoon. So it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce you to these lovely ladies who sponsored lunch for us today. So thank you for that amazing lunch. So Brenda and Bethany, who would like the mic? And I was going to ask you, so you can control your slides? Okay, yep. You can go back if you need to, so you can select the microphone. Just make sure, yeah.
So hello. Well, it's very loud. Okay, I have a big voice, so I'm gonna hold this way down here. So my name is Brenda Jolly, and this is my coworker, Bethany Carilli. We are business performance advisors with Insperity, which is an HR resource company for scaling businesses. So we work with companies from the startup phase. So when we say startup, we're talking about you at least have some sort of employees. So 3 to 5 employees, all the way up to 5,000. And our goal is really from an HR perspective, and we'll get into all fun things HR. I said, how exciting for you guys that you get to eat lunch and then you have to listen to us talk about HR. Great. So we're excited to be here with you today. This is our contact information. If anybody wants to talk to us further afterwards, by all means, feel free to reach out. And then outside, we also brought books for everyone. So this book is called Take Care of Your People. It was written by our CEO, Paul Sarvati, and we have a lot of respect for him. So he was the founder of Insperity, and if you get the opportunity to hear him speak, he will joke around about being a serial entrepreneur. He says that, I had 5 or 6 businesses, and I only call myself a serial entrepreneur because they all failed, not because I want it to be. But that was the light bulb for founding Insperity and realizing the challenges that business owners have as they try to scale their company from a human capital perspective. And again, I won't go into the details because we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we fundamentally believe that good people make for a great business. And so when Insperity is in the market, whether you become our client or not, we're looking for opportunities to serve the business community here in Hampton Roads, Virginia. We do a ton of work in the government contracting sector. And we look to align with
business owners and business leaders who also care a great deal about their people and believe that, okay, if my people love coming to work for me, then that's going to increase their discretionary effort, which ultimately is going to affect the profitability of my business. And so when we find like-minded executives and owners and team leaders who believe that, then there's a lot of synergy for us to really be a strong resource for those companies. So what we want to share with you today is we have developed, so Insperity was founded in 1986. We founded what was called the Professional Employer Organization, a PEO. And we won't get too far into that. That's for another day. But we have created 9 key strategies that help companies take better care of their people, because ultimately, fundamentally, we believe that your people are what drive results. And so as we talk about these things, what I want you to think is, what sort of results are you trying to achieve? And how does that relate to your team? So I'm going to go with the first one, and then I'll pass it back to Bethany, and we'll kind of go back and forth from there. So the first strategy that we have used over the last 36 years to help companies scale is culture. And there are over, I don't know, maybe 1,000 different books you can go find on culture. So there's a ton of ways to define that and resource yourself around how to build a great company culture. But for the short couple of minutes that we have with you today, one of the things that we encourage our companies to think about is, okay, so you have this startup company and you're really passionate about the cause, you're a subject matter expert, you had a previous career that led you to great connections to now be able to execute in the space that you're in, different reasons that you might start the firm that you have. And so you create your mission, and then you create your vision and values, and you put your poster on the wall and it says like integrity and creativity and innovation and respect for the individual and accountability. Okay, so those are the company values. So you think, okay, that's my culture, that poster over there on the wall. And then what happens is an employee comes in and they raise their hand, they're new, and they say, oh, I have a great idea for how we could do this better. And then the whole room goes quiet because everybody turns around and says, oh, no. There's these 2 people here in our company and they're allowed to have great ideas, but the rest of us, we're just quiet. So your poster says that your culture is creativity and innovation. And here's what I'll give you for culture. But you don't tolerate innovation and creativity. So what you tolerate in your company is truly what your culture is. And so that's how we define it at Insperity when we're taking the exploration with the businesses. What do you tolerate? Because the gap from what you have on your poster on the wall to what you actually tolerate is where you can develop mistrust or trust with your employees, and where you can get them to buy in and stay with you long term, or they say one thing but they do another, so I don't want to hitch myself to this long term. So culture is the first of the 9 strategies that we like to talk about when we're talking about human capital.
And the second, can you guys hear me? The second is hiring, recruiting, and retention. So on the hiring and recruiting front, a lot of businesses have a hard time hiring or recruiting, especially when we're in an environment like we are today. I think what a lot of businesses, especially that we meet with, don't fully understand is when you are going out and looking for an employee to fill an open role that you have, you might not understand that that employee is also interviewing you back and looking for a culture that resonates with them. So how do we attract the talent that we're looking to fill these roles that we have open? A couple of things that we talk to businesses about is, have you looked at your job descriptions? When is the last time you reviewed those? Does it really depict what that employee is going to be doing in that role and speak to the company culture? Again, a lot of this comes back to culture. Second is, have we looked at total compensation and rewards for the business? Not just from a salary standpoint, but what other great benefits are you offering to employees? And is that shown in your job description? And are you talking about it when you're interviewing and looking for candidates? Is there the ability to grow internally? Do you have a training program? Again, mention this when you're looking for talent to fill those roles. And then finally, if you have happy employees with you right now, they're going to be the best recruiters to find you new employees too. So if you don't already have it, we always recommend looking at adding an employee incentive program for employees to bring on some of their family and friends that might be a good fit for those open roles. Because the labor market is so tight today, if we could pick one word to describe doing like a rap skit for a second. I was like, okay. So if we picked one word to think of the HR differentiator for 2023, it would be retention. Retaining the great employees that you have is what's going to pull you out above those other companies. There's a stat out there that says nearly half of the hourly employees leave a company within the first 4 months of joining it. Another stat says nearly half of outside senior hires leave a company within the first 18 months. So how do we retain those great employees that we work so hard to bring on board? Because retention is time consuming and it's costly. Some of the biggest reasons we see employees leaving their jobs today is lack of flexibility, especially in the day that we're in. If you can work remote or if you can work hybrid or you can give some people different schedules because of family pieces, that's really important. Lack of career growth. And culture. Again, it all comes back to culture. So again, how do we retain those great employees that we already have on board with us? Another piece we always tell our businesses to take a look at is just overall recognizing and rewarding employees.
Great. I'm going to use notes for this one. So rewards and recognition. Your employees, they take time away from their families, they take time away from their hobbies to come and work for your company. And so having a culture where you reward and recognize employees helps you with that long-term retention. What I think is interesting about this one is, so how many of you get a paycheck from your company? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you pay employees at your company? Okay, oh, thank you. Now they got my mugshot. Okay, so you as an owner, sure, you'll build a business and not take a paycheck. But if I'm your employee, am I going to come to work for you for no paycheck? One, it's illegal. That's the next one, liability and compliance. Okay, unless they're your child, and then you can get around that. They can work for you for free. Okay. Okay. But that's the baseline. Paying people is the baseline of rewards and recognition. And some companies pay extremely lavishly, and yet that's still a baseline. And so if we want to create a workplace where people are driven by more than a paycheck, we have to start with the values of why a company would want to earn a wage with you long term. Again, going back to that culture. So I just want to go through a couple different ways. Employees are looking for one, to be challenged, two, to be developed, and three, to feel appreciated. And so those three things are really important when we're talking about rewards and recognition. The other thing, this is really interesting. How many of you will hire Gen Zers in the next 5 years? Okay. I mean, they're the ones graduating college right now. Some of you won't because you're hiring subject matter experts, so that's not really applicable to you. But you want to talk about multi-generational. Do you know that your Gen Zers right now, they care more about your social responsibility conversation than they do about your paycheck? They want to know as a company how you're giving back to the communities where you live and work over how much they're getting paid. Sure, they want to know how much they're getting paid. They're not that altruistic. Thanks, Eileen. I'll stay over here. But they also care about how your company contributes to the community. And so that again falls into rewards and recognition. When's the last time, who in here is the executive? Who's the boss? A couple of you? Okay. So this is for you. When's the last time you took a Post-it note and said, hey, I really saw the extra effort you put out. Thank you. And stuck it on your employee's desk. Do you know how far that goes for rewards and recognition? And how simple that is to do? But I'm not here to like make anybody feel bad. Who's familiar with DISC? Are we familiar with DISC personality profiles? Okay, most of the room is yes. I don't want to lose everyone. I'm a high D, which means I'm task oriented. I want to get things done. I want to move fast. If things get broken in the process, no big deal. We'll fix it. Okay, not everybody operates like that, but I'm the first one who's guilty of not taking a minute to pause and celebrate the effort of the people that work with me and for me. And so rewards and recognition is really important. And the other thing is development. You know, do we have on our core values, we have something like education or training and development or, you know, being the kind of place where people could have a long-term career. do we say that, but then we have no pathways to train and develop our employees? But then it goes back to, okay, I say that, but my tolerance for training and development is extremely low. And nowadays, just think about this. If you have a job offer on the table and you're looking at a job, same roles, similar salaries, company A, company B, and company B says, okay, well, here's your role and here's your salary, but we also have already mapped out your career development. So in the next 18 months, here's the training that we'll put you through. And if you hit these metrics with us, then this is the promotion you can expect. Okay, which company do you want to go work for? Yeah, you want to go to company B, right? Because you know there's an opportunity for you to grow as an individual. And so rewards and recognition is so much more than a paycheck. That's the one thing we want you to take away from that.
Then I get to talk about the fun parts, liability and compliance. And every aspect of your business is managed by the compliance piece. And everything that we talk about today can be impacted by compliance. So some of you might not have yet hired an employee, or you've hired one employee, or you might be many employees down the road. Think of when you first hired your employee, to the first time you paid them, to the first time you had to discipline them or go through a training process, or unfortunately terminate them. Every single step in that process is scrutinized. And on top of that, since 1980, the amount of employer-related regulations has just about tripled. So there's so many pieces for you to manage as a business owner, and compliance can impact every aspect of your business. Some of the top issues that we see today when we're talking with small business owners is, first and foremost, employee retaliation claims have been huge the past couple of years, especially out of COVID. Second is incorrect classing of 1099 employees versus W-2 employees. And the third is incorrect classing of exempt versus non-exempt. So we always recommend, there's plenty of great HR partners out there. If you don't know all of these pieces and you don't have the time to study all of them, partner with a great HR resource partner, or work really closely with a lawyer to make sure that you're up to date on all of those pieces. There are a few small steps that we recommend immediately taking a look at that help just mitigate a few of the risks you face. First and foremost is, if you don't have an employee handbook or you haven't updated in a while, get it updated. That really helps bridge the gap between employee expectations and employer expectations, and allows you to put all of your rules and regulations in there to make sure that they're followed. The other piece is everyone familiar with employment practices and liabilities insurance? Okay, great. I love to hear that. If you're not, I would pick up your phone and call your workers' comp broker and see if they can add it to your policy. That's going to protect your business from things like wrongful termination, sexual harassment, those pieces. So that's it. Those are two steps you can take today to further protect your business. Yes, EPLI, Employer Practices and Liabilities Insurance.
So next is performance management. So Bethany and I have the privilege of meeting with business owners every single week. So it's such a fun role, because every week is a new conversation and rolling up our sleeves to say, okay, what's going on inside your company and with your people? And is there an opportunity for us to help, or do we have a great resource outside of what we do to help your business continue to grow and scale? And one of the areas that I see, especially for small business, and when we think small business, thinking anywhere 50 million and under in terms of revenue, we see that I think every small business owner I meet with, I ask, do you do performance reviews? Yeah, but not how I want to. Yeah, absolutely. I know I should, and we do, but it kind of falls through the crack. And then I'll ask, okay, so do you feel like, because obviously you need to do performance reviews. Obviously, there's an importance there in that it carries some weight in your overall performance of your company. But so often it's like, okay, I know I need to do this, so I have this system in place so I can check that box and say, okay, it's done. Which is okay, because again, I have a lot of respect for the entrepreneur, the number of hats that you wear, the executive, the number of roles that you have to fill, the number of questions you have to answer in a day. Like, I don't envy your job. You guys do amazing work. But one of the key areas that we see, again, what we talk about discretionary effort. Okay, if I have an employee who's an A player, if I can get that employee even motivated a little bit more to give me just, 5 or 10% more, that just what we define as discretionary effort, that affects my profitability. If I have a C player and they're consistently missing the mark? Do I have good on roads and off ramps to either boost that performance to, let's just not even say an A player, but can I get them to be a B player on my team to hit the goals? Do I have systems in place to have honest conversations with my employees about their performance? And then do I have the training and development behind it to support them going from a C to a B to an A? Or is my performance management and review process strong enough that if I have a C player who either is incapable of becoming a B player, or what we realize is their values intrinsically don't align with the values of my company, is my process strong enough that they will recognize that and push themselves out? And then we'll go back to liability and compliance, because if you don't document this stuff correctly, then you go back to the retaliation claims, which we see rising since COVID. And so in like other scenarios, there's so much around liability and compliance when you talk about performance management. Okay, let's say we have, let's just use Mike and Tom, same role. Mike gets promoted, Tom doesn't. Tom's super upset. He's a great employee. He feels like he's done a good job. He should have gotten that promotion. Do I have documentation of why Mike got it and Tom didn't? Am I protected as a business owner because I've done performance management correctly? And you need good resources around your company to do that. So performance management, having an avenue to have open and honest conversations. One of my government contracting clients here locally, this was a key thing for him. He said, when we were meeting, he said, Brenda, I'm very entrepreneurial. Like if somebody in my firm wants to go after a new contract, I want to help them do it. I want to make sure that I know what my employees are passionate about so that if they want to open a new line of business in our company, they can do it here and they don't feel like they have to leave and start another company or go to another business to be able to do that. But you only know that about your employees if you have a system in place to have those conversations with them about what's your long-term career goal. How can I help you achieve what you want to achieve as an individual while also meeting the goals that we've set for the performance we need for our profitability. And so then next we'll go to admin tech.
Okay, so on the administrative and technology point, time is money, right? There's so many HR related paperwork and processes that you as a business owner or leader have to manage day in and day out, and a lot of it can take time away from other aspects of the business. And on top of that, again, back to the compliance and liability, first and foremost, if you're doing things manually, you can make mistakes, which is a lot of revenue for the business. And it also can open you up to more compliance concerns. Say you're keeping everything hard copy personnel data and it gets lost. You've just opened yourself up to another compliance issue. So we live in a world today where there's tons of technology options. There are plenty of great HR technology platforms that you can invest in. And doing so helps you streamline and automate a lot of those HR processes, saving you time and money. It also reduces a lot of your liabilities as a business owner. And it also provides a really innovative employee experience. Think about an employee starting a job day one, and the entire onboarding process is done in their specified portal. And they see from day one that their company has invested in them for this platform that allows them to do their job better, as well as making them more self-sufficient from a few of those HR pieces that we talked about. And then the next up is
So M&A. So I used to be an entrepreneur and I've had the pleasure of selling one business, and there's a lot that goes into selling a company. And there's a long runway before you get to the point where your company is ready for an M&A type deal. So from an HR perspective, you don't want any skeletons in your closet. You don't want any compliance skeletons in your closet. If you are building your company for acquisition, then you're going to have to disclose, do you have EEOC claims? Are you up to date on your payroll taxes? Can you produce all the reports that I need for me to do my due diligence to say, yes, I'm willing to see this deal all the way through? And so our encouragement is if you can, all of these strategies that lead, the 6 that go before mergers and acquisitions, if you have those things clean and tight, then you drive up the valuation of your business. On the flip side, you might be the kind of business that's looking to acquire. So maybe you've done well in organic growth and now you want to do growth through acquisition. You want to make sure that the companies that you're acquiring have done these things pretty clean, particularly the liability and compliance side, because then you're taking that on and you're taking that risk and that liability on yourself.
And so depending on, just what your business life cycle is, whether you are trying to scale so you can be acquired, or and that bleeds into succession too. And that's the other thing is like if you've spent your whole life building this business and now you get to the point where you're ready and able to retire, you want to be able to make sure that all the money that you put into it, that you have a way to get that money back out for yourself in retirement. And again, so anytime you can keep your company clean from an HR perspective, that's one of those boxes that you have to check in that M&A process or that succession planning, to make sure that you can really get the value that you've built. And so we always encourage our companies, again, liability and compliance. Everybody say it, liability and compliance. Pay your people the right way. We can't stress it enough, only because in our day to day we see it all the time, and it's heartbreaking.
Okay, so I'm going to close this out with the last two because we really feel like leadership and communication go hand in hand. At Insperity, we're big believers in servant leadership, inspiring people to achieve their own personal and company goals. Essentially, what that means is the people at the top are working for everybody else. So a big piece of this is constant communication, and that means in good times and not so great times. The more you can share with your team and your employees, the more likely they are to participate more and do work towards your mission for the organization. So again, summing all of this up, this all comes back to culture. With communication, the more you, as a business owner, you want to grow your culture to where it is, the more you can talk about it and communicate it with your employees, with potential new hires, with really anybody that will listen, the better the entire company is. So that's really our 9 key strategies encompassed there in a couple of minutes for you. I know we just threw a bunch of information at you. So again, as Brenda said, we've got some books outside that really go into these strategies a little bit more. Brenda and I are always happy to be a resource for anyone in the community. So if you are interested in having a further conversation or just think that we can help or be a resource for you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But thank you for letting us come and talk to you today. And